Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the first follow along. This is going to be a very simple one. Essentially, we are just going to see the Fusion 360 interface and how do you navigate around and what are the different things that are there in the software. Hopefully, you can see the keystrokes as well on the side. So, for future tutorials or follow along videos, whatever I'll be pressing on my keyboard, it will be visible on the bottom left of the screen so that it's helpful for you to follow along, right? Okay. So while talking, I just press random things and something open. Okay, so let's begin. So when you click on Fusion 360 icon, you will see this screen, and this is basically the interface where you will be making your CAD models and sketches and many other things as well. So let's begin with the basics. So the first thing that you would want to do, and you should know essentially, and you should get very comfortable with, is the viewport. So this is called the viewport where you will actually see your things being made, or you'll be modifying things or making things, but you should be able to navigate around or look at your 3D model from the correct angle or while modifying something and so on. So there are three ways you can navigate around. First, which is the very simple one, is basically literally zooming in to the part or zooming out, which you might have already guessed is done by the scroll on your mouse. So you can see on the bottom left, the middle mouse can be used for scrolling, and it literally just zooms in and zooms out to wherever your cursor is, right? So wherever your pointer is pointing, that will become the center of the zoom in and zoom out point. So you don't have to set any point essentially where you want to zoom in. You literally just take your cursor there and you zoom in. Okay, simple. The second, what you would want to do, a second navigation is panning. So literally moving your screen around or scrolling sideways if you want to call it. So that you can do by pressing the middle mouse button. Instead of scrolling now, you press your middle mouse button and you can pan. This is called pan, okay? And the third one, and the really important one, I would say, is the orienting, and that you can do by pressing shift and the middle mouse button again, and then you can go around again, right? So over here, one thing to notice is that the origin on the screen is kept as the center point of your rotation around that point, and that will come in handy later. Okay, we can change it, but you can see that wherever my cursor is, it doesn't matter. I am always rotating about the origin on the plane. Okay, so a couple more things I should mention. The green line over there on the grid or the plane, let's call it. So if I orient like this, you can see that it's a plane. So the green line represents the y-axis. The red line is representing the x-axis, and the z or vertically up is the z-axis. Okay. You can also check it from this cube, which is called the corner cube, and this is also very helpful for orienting correctly. As you can see, when I just keep my cursor or hover my cursor on top of the cube, I can select some of the planes. So for example, if I want to look at the left plane, I'll just click on that and it auto orients everything, takes me to the left view. It will become a little bit more clear when we have an object in it. So let me quickly create an object. Don't worry about how am I making it right now. So let's make a torus. I'm just quickly setting two circles. Okay, this is a torus, and again, as we said, we can look around. So if I click on the left plane, it takes me to the left plane. I can go around, look at the back, also look at it from the center, within between two planes or from a corner, right? Okay, so you can explore that. If you get lost in orientation, or if you zoom in too much and you don't know what to do, just press home and it should take you to the default orientation, position, location, everything. Yeah. Okay, so that's one thing, navigation. The next, let's look at some of the buttons at the bottom, center bottom. So again, the revolution that we were calling is actually called orbit, and you can actually just select it by left clicking over here as well, and just drag around with your left mouse button, right? So I'm using my left mouse button when this is selected. Okay. Then there are the other options as well. There's constraint orbit and free orbit. Let's just keep it to constraint orbit for now. Yeah. Okay. Then anything that you want to come out of, you just simply press escape, and whatever selection you had made, that will not be selected anymore. Then you can use the hand to pan, which was the shortcut was the middle mouse button and dragging, but you can also select this hand and just left click and drag around. Okay, escape again. Then you can zoom as well. Uh, Again, click on it, zoom in, zoom out, just literally dragging it up and down. There are some other options that I would want you to explore as well. You can use F6 or fit to fit your model in the center of the screen. Good for taking screen captures essentially. Then you can zoom a window, so you can select a portion and zoom to that specific part. Yeah, and then there's look at. This will come in handy when we have planes in our model. Right now this doesn't, so it won't work. But essentially you click on that and click on a plane to look at that plane. Okay, let's zoom out or let's click on the home button. Some other display settings. Let's look at that. It's important to just know them. Uh, Apparently the display settings are not opening. Okay, I'll come back to that, but let's open the grid. So the mesh that you see, that's called the grid. It's good to have it on so that you're not lost in just the white space. You can have grid lock. Snap grid is good. So while making sketches, you can click on the points. Then you can explore some other settings as well. There is an option called viewport where you can look at multiple windows together. So left view, right view, top view, and also the isometric view. But let's just work on the single view for now. Okay, great. So that's good. You've got the basic navigation. Now let's look at some other things. Okay, so opening a file, like every other software, you have open, you have save, you have export. We'll talk about export specially when we would need specific extensions of files. Then we have capture image, which is good for reports. So there's something called a render, which is really good if you do, it makes your object look realistic, but capture image is good enough as well. I again want to try the display settings. There you go. Probably something was not working at that time. So display settings is one thing that you would want to play around, not usually when you're making your sketches or models. You would want to keep them on default, but it's good to keep it shaded. Just remove the edges and then see how it looks. So just to show you how it looks, let's just quickly make a cube at the center of this torus. Let's just press OK. So you can see that right now the cube or the cuboid in this case doesn't have any edges, right? So views like this are really good for taking screenshots. Um, then you can enable the hidden edges as well. So you can see the dashed lines, which are the hidden edges. Usually you would just want to work with shaded with visible edges only. That makes it simple and clearer to work with. There are some other settings like wireframe, which you might want to use when you want to show the internal structures. Then wireframe with hidden edges and visible edges only. Okay, so you can explore all those. Try giving it a go. Let's just bring it back to the default. Also, you can notice that wherever we see some commands, we also have something at the very right, and these are basically the shortcuts. So eventually, to become faster in CAD modeling, it is a good idea to learn some of the shortcuts, and I'll be talking about those which I mostly use, but you're free to learn all as well if you want to, but you don't have to do it by heart. Essentially, when you keep practicing and using the same commands again and again, you will remember them. Then you can change the environment. Photo booth is good enough. It will give you good shadows and you will be able to see the things properly. But you can become fancier if you want to go around, change the environment lighting and all that. Then there's ground plane, which is good to have if you want to see the shadows. Sometimes if your PC is slow and not performing, like if your card is too complicated, you can just turn the ground plane off and some other settings as well. You can turn on object shadow and turn it off as well. I like to keep it off during designing. You can turn it on when you are taking maybe a screen capture or something like that. Then keep all of these on. These are most of the things that you will be using for designing like construction planes, axes, and all that. Then this is a really important one. We've also discussed this in the lecture, but these are different types of views. So especially if you look at the cuboid, let me remove the donut from the view for now. And let's just focus on this cuboid, right? So the current view of this cuboid is essentially called an orthographic view, in which all the lines are parallel to the axis. For example, uh, if you look at this view, the lines are perpendicular, but in reality, and especially our eyes, we see in perspective. For example, you can think of it in this manner. If we stand in the center of the road or while crossing the road or while driving, even when you look farther ahead on the road, you can see the lines converging or the road converging to a center point, and that's essentially due to perspective. And that makes our models look realistic, but it makes it difficult to perceive when you are modeling, especially. So it's good to have perspective on when you are again taking screenshots or just want to show how your model looks. But while designing, I would suggest you to keep it as an orthographic view. You can also try perspective with orthographic edges, but again, the recommendation is just to keep it as orthographic. Okay, let's go back. And you can also start designing in the full screen mode if you really fancy that. It's up to personal preference again. Okay, so you would have logged into your account, your Fusion account, while setting it up. You can check your profile and other things from here. Not really important. Some things that Fusion likes to do is keep pushing updates. Essentially, because if you're using university's PC, these will be done automatically. But if you have Fusion on your personal PC, you would want to make sure that there's no update pending, because otherwise Fusion just likes to become very slow and perform poorly. Great. So we've looked at some of the options in file. We'll look at 3D print as well later, but one very important one is share, which you would be using for submitting your assignments. Essentially, you can check those on now. Some of them are optional, but there's a catch. You can get some badges for doing some of the CAD sessions, but I'll talk about it in lecture. Then you can use save again to save your file. And one very important thing over here to understand in Fusion is that it is a cloud-based software. So even if you save a file, it doesn't really get saved on your PC as such. It is stored on your Autodesk account. And to handle all that data and your saved files, you can go to the data panel, and this is where it shows all your saved files. So for example, if I, let's say, let's go ahead and save this cuboid, okay? So I click on save, you can select your location. It will be different folders that you've made. And let's name it something. Let's name it cuboid, okay? And let's save. So it should appear here. You can see it just shows it in a default view. You can't really change this view. But very important thing over here is to see that it captures all the versions. For example, if you make some modification and save it again, it will save it as version 2. And for example, later you do something with your model and you don't really like it, but you want to go back onto a previous state of that model, then you can just simply click on an earlier version of that and open it here. You can explore some of the other things that are related to this file. For example, how many times it has been used, what are the files it has been used in, if there are any drawings associated and all that. And An important thing that I will know if you just copy each other's designs and do for submitting the assignments is that it clearly saves the author name here. So it will show that who designed it, even though if you just try to import it and save it again, it will show the original author's name. So obviously don't try to copy each other's things and just reuse each other things, okay? Okay, so I think that is pretty much it for the basics and navigation. One very important thing that we will cover on the next one is making sketches so that we can start making some 3D models already from the second follow along. So great. Thank you. See you in the second one.